I always imagined going to uni was going to be like, I would know everyone in my lectures and they would all have all these big, serious conversations. I didn't even know anyone's name for the first year. So, so I think I didn't really get much of it in uni apart from the odd comment, because I did a healthcare degree. I think one of the lecturers once was like, are Gypsies and Roma ethnicities? And everyone was like, ew, no. And I was just sitting there and I was like, and I think it's just the idea that people don't even consider that a traveller can go to uni. That there wasn't, the lecturer and the students didn't even consider that a Gypsy could be in that room.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I mean, I'm pretty thick-skinned. I've worked in like restaurants and bars my entire life. Well, entire like adult life, not when I was a 5-year-old. But it was just this like strange thing. I was sort of sitting there and I was like, do I say something? Like I should say something. But then equally, I've already just seen everyone's response to the word Gypsy as being like, they're like aliens. Do I really want to say something?
Yeah.
Do I trust the people in this room to say that I'm a Gypsy? Like all of these things just kept going through my head. And I was like, God. So I just didn't. And that's probably the coward's way out and not the response I should be giving. But I was like, I just didn't want to have that like awkward, long, complicated conversation with people that just didn't understand.
Yeah. And it's also not your responsibility as a traveler to make them understand.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this was way before I got involved with RomBelong or Kings or any type of, I mean, I didn't even know that like there were traveller activists. I'm not an activist. I don't consider myself one, because I think that activists do lots of amazing work and, they're all like out there on the streets and shouting. And I'm like, can I just sort of stay in the background, please? Can I just do a spreadsheet and you guys do the shouting? I'll do the organising. But yeah, when I had that sort of experience in my first year at uni, I didn't even know that, like, I didn't know anything. I knew I was a traveller. That was it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know who Roma were. Like, I was like, So I started being a widening participation ambassador, like a student ambassador. And that was simply because I needed money. And it was the easiest type of work that I could do and get money. Because, like, I don't know if you've done student ambassador work, but it's pretty simple. Like, you show up and you be nice to people. Like, so I started doing that. And then, like, as I started to actually understand what widening participation was, and like they were doing all these great work with like underrepresented groups. And I was like, well, a lot of these barriers are the same barriers that travellers face. Perhaps not me completely in particular because of the sort of my upbringing, but a lot of travellers. So I just sort of started talking to them about it. And I was like, is there a way we can see, do you do anything with travellers? And they were like, no, but we want to. And then I did an internship with them and sort of just started kind of talking to a few more people and realizing that maybe we could do something. Like, I didn't think it was going to be this. Absolutely not. But I think it just sort of came from a quite a natural place where I sort of, different parts of my life started clicking together. It didn't feel like I had to be like, oh, this is my traveller part of me. This is my uni part of me. This is like my friendship group part. I was like, I'm going to end up having some sort of breakdown if I keeping these things separate, And so I just started talking a lot more about it, and here I am. So with the RomBelong programme, we mostly work at looking at the barriers before university because, as you know from your research, but people that are listening might not know, sort of Gypsies, Roma and Travellers are the least likely to finish high school, and the least likely to go on to sixth form. And then, which means, if you're not finishing those two steps, then universities are different. It might as well be in a different country or a different planet. So we look mostly at our activities for younger people, to kind of address attainment, address say in school, going to sixth form. And the reasons that they don't are completely multifactorial. I mean, it gets sort of put onto culture that, travellers don't appreciate education, so they don't go on to sixth form or they don't want to stay in school. And it's not that, like, it's a whole kind of myriad of reasons that would be a completely different podcast to do. So we mainly focus on sort of kind of working in schools with young people. We've got this sort of in-school project that we did last year, which had to be halted because of COVID, which was a series of 6 sessions in a year 6 classroom with the Traveller students, to do a research project with them about what they were interested in. And it started off very open. Me and my colleague Chelsea, we went to the school and we just basically asked these kids what they liked doing and what they were interested in. And the responses we got were amazing, like things like marine biology, game design, astronaut, and all of these things that lots of people just sort of assume travellers don't want to do, because they're all like madly academic. And most people are like, oh, well, travellers are interested in boxing and floristry. And, that's the myth and the stereotype. And I think what we're trying to show in RomBelong is that, yes, like being a boxer is great, being a florist is great, but they're not the only things that our young people want to do. Like my brother is a nuclear physicist living in Japan. Like if he had to be a boxer, he'd be a terrible boxer. He's really skinny. So it's sort of saying that there's a choice, and it's not about making all travellers academic. It's about saying that our kids have the right to have the same choices and opportunities as every other child. So we do a lot of that kind of work, sort of addressing those myths out on the outside, and then with the actual young people themselves, giving them the skills that they need to succeed in education. Just because travellers also have like a less likelihood of their parents sort of finishing sort of further education or even high school. My dad himself, he left school when he was sort of 11 or 12. So, he wouldn't have been able to help me with homework and stuff. And so kind of giving them those skills that other students take for granted, I'd say. And then COVID sort of put a stop to a lot of our work. But it didn't put a stop to it. We changed. So we saw a gap. So when schools locked down in April, everything went straight to homeschooling. And a lot was put onto parents, like straight away, being like, you've got to do all this stuff with your kids. And if you've got a parent that has not finished high school, then actually a lot of that homework is going to be completely out of their sort of sphere of ability. So we started offering tutoring, online tutoring it started with volunteers because we didn't have any funding or budget. And we soon became like oversubscribed. And then we got funding to do it kind of as a permanent fixture from September. So it's now been running since then, and we've got 120 students getting tutoring from our original 15.
Oh my God.
Which is why I'm looking quite tired at the moment.
You must be exhausted.
Yeah. It's great. It's great to see that like parents really want it, kids really want it. And it like blows that stereotype out of the water. So, this idea that travellers don't want education, I'm like, well, why have I got a waiting list that's 45 people long whilst I've got what? So it's been really, really, really great and really interesting. And it's an opportunity that wouldn't have come up without COVID. We just wouldn't even thought of it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and I've got to imagine that the like remote aspect of the tutoring could be helpful and something that might be able to continue in some form after COVID, right?
Oh, 100%. What my sort of dream for it is to be, and it was starting when the schools reopened, it was actually starting to work really well in that way, is that it's not a replacement for school. We want our kids to be in school, but it's an hour kind of like on a, after school one night or on a weekend one day, to help them like understand everything at school, understand homework, help with homework, and give them that boost on top of school. And once COVID is over, whenever that's going to be, we really want this to continue, because if we can look at those attainment gaps and keep kids interested in school, the more we keep them interested in school, the more likely they are to go to uni.
I think that kings, like from any internet research that I've done is really at the forefront. It's a really pioneering effort to accommodate GRT students. And on that note, I was kind of wondering, like, in an ideal world where there are resources, what kind of experience would you like, or would you envision, what kind of resources, support would be available to GRT students upon their arrival at universities?
So I'd say some like bursaries easily. I know that people say it's not about the money, but bursaries would go a long way to making people feel welcome, and also make it more possible. And it's not just about them, like their parents. If the parents know that there's a bursary for their child when they go to uni that is specifically for Gypsy, Roma and Travellers, then like it speaks louder than kind of lip service or events that the uni might put on. Like, you know, great. I mean, I know I would never speak for Travellers as general. I can only speak for myself, but that would mean more to me than a poster during Gypsy, Roma and Traveller History Month. You know, like what is going to make most difference in your life. And I think just like it's that fine line between not othering. Like if you're a traveller and you've got to university, then you've still got all the same grades as everyone else. Like it's not as though it's not as like we've got two heads, you know, like the help that we need is the same help that all students need, but some students have got the kickstart that their parents have gone to uni, their siblings have gone to uni, so they know how the system works. So, and I think that's the same for any person that's sort of like the first generation to go to uni, or like, you know, even if you think about sort of forced migrants and people that are going to uni in that way, we just don't know the kind of the ins and outs of this very kind of still middle class, high upper class system that's kind of moving slowly into the 21st century, but it's still kind of a bit archaic. So I don't think there needs to be like specific help for Gypsy, Roma and Travellers, but just more kind of support and kind of like signpost to the things that are already there. Like, I don't think we should reinvent the wheel, but to be like, oh, did you know that student services does this? Did you know that we've got these money support things? Did you know that you should be talking to your personal tutor every, I never talk to my personal tutor, so I've got no idea. Like, you know, like those types of things that just kind of maybe just need to be a bit more explicit. That aren't like, I don't think we need sort of separate groups for travellers, or, you know, just a bit more honesty and openness in this sort of very closed off system. Yeah, I think it's strange, like, because as soon as you start talking, and I think this is what I realised, is that we're all, like, whether you're a traveller or you're black or you're mixed race or you're deaf or you're white and rich, and, you know, all of these people, like, actually, as soon as we start talking to each other, like, on a shallow conversation, we're really not alike. But then as soon as you start getting into the themes of life, actually, we've all got so much more in common. And all of a sudden saying, oh, well, you know, as a traveller, this happens when you're young, and, you know, and this is like quite a funny story about my upbringing. And then everyone's like, oh my God. And it's not the same story, but then you break it down into the themes, and it's like love or kind of responsibilities. And actually, we've all got a lot more in common than we don't have in common, you know?
I absolutely agree. We're like connected through these universal themes that you don't quite get through small talk. And it's almost like these feelings of feeling othered or not belonging can block you from seeing that we're all connected through these similar themes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What, like, a mantra I've had lately is, it's hard to hate someone up close.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, because
exactly. You know, it's very easy. Like when I talk about sort of media representation, and I always say very quickly in conversations now about being a traveller, just because I don't. I like to sort of see how people react, and you can kind of see in their head, they're like, this woman standing in front of me is not what I imagine a traveller to be. This woman standing in front of me is not what the Daily Mail and the Sun told me travellers were. She has not tried to steal my wallet once. She has not fly tipped on the road once. And and like you say, it's difficult to hate someone when you're that close, like when you're up close. Like they're like, oh, okay, now I've got to reassess what I think a gypsy is.
Yes.
And that's quite interesting too.